welcome back to the Unknown Podcast. Kofi, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. How many weeks, Kofi? How many weeks?
I think it's been at least 2.5, if not 3 weeks. Yeah, because you weren't filming for like.
I went for about 2 weeks.
Yeah, you went filming for 2 weeks,
and I've been back for about 2 or 3.
No, it couldn't have been more than a month.
Yeah, I go back on the 10th. Yeah, I've been back
December?
for about. I think so. Yeah, go back 10th of December, and then 2 weeks since. So it's been about 4 or 5 weeks since we recorded. Oh, my God, it's been feels like a whole entire world collapse. Meanwhile, Kofi is little business to get through. By the way, I'm Onuora.
Right, I'm Kofi, aka Hedy.
Welcome back.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. First of all,
Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy whatever you celebrate. Happy winter solstice. Doesn't matter. I don't discriminate. So, Kofi, a little bit of business to get through. What's this little bit of snuff for my stuff? Anyway, Kofi, a little bit of business to get through, my brother.
Let's go.
Approximately 2 months.
I'm not afraid.
11/11/22. A little movie came out.
A small one.
The name of Wakanda Forever. Mm-hmm. We did 2 episodes on it. One where we did a box office prediction, and one we did a review. And it's funny because my box office prediction was significantly lower than yours, but my review of the film was significantly higher than yours. So there's some irony there already. Yeah. But I believe, Kofi, he said something along the lines of this movie will at least make $1 billion.
Okay. So
you're right. Today.
No, hold on. You're right. Before you say what the number is done, remember initially what my initial number was. Do you remember what the initial number was?
What's the number? It's $1 billion.
No. Do you remember what the initial number was? Don't get me wrong. I got cocky and increased it based on my own argument. I trusted my argument.
$1 billion standard. This guy said. Let's see where we are.
No. So where we are right now is what my original estimate was.
Let's not forget. I said 820, and I said 8. I gave it a range. I said 820 to 9 something. I can't remember. As of now, it's made 801. And let's just face it, it'll probably make 820, 850 by the end of the year. I think with the on demand and stuff, it'll probably go to 850, but 801 is. And this is the thing. This isn't the topic, by the way. But this is part of what I was saying to you at the beginning when we're doing it, is that I don't think it's a bad number in light of everything.
It's a very good number.
In light of everything that happened with the, with Chadwick Boseman, with everything. And it's funny, the longer I live with the story, the more I dislike it. The more I live with the story, like what the story is about, the more I dislike it. Like when I think about what this movie is about, I actually dislike like the messages that they were sending. I actually think that the messages in the first one were more realistic in the sense that you have a Michael B. Jordan character who is an African-American guy, very like aggressive, but is in, probably had the right mindset as far as like the Pan-African side is concerned. And then Chadwick Boseman is like the kind of conservative, you know how African heads of state are these days, just very conservative, don't really say anything too controversial, happy to work with the Europeans. So that was more realistic. This one was basically like a, when you think about it, it's essentially Wakanda has lost its power completely. And the thing is the way it ends as well. There's no real hope in the short term that because I allude to the scene with Namor. First of all, the mercy that's shown by Shuri, whatever her name is just not in keeping with what an action movie about a superhero should be. But then at the very end, when when the Namor is asked, "Oh, why did you do a deal with these people?" The response is, "Don't worry, I'll get him." It's essentially, the with the exception of Namor losing in that battle, they didn't really the Namorians, whatever they call them, those underwater people, never came off looking bad. So the more I live with the story, the more I'm upset by the story a little bit, Not a little bit, actually, quite a lot, actually. The more I live with the story, the more I'm just like, because don't get me wrong, I still think it's a brilliant movie, and even my Oscar predictions, I think it was nominated for music and for Golden Globe, sorry, music and best supporting actor. But really, when I look back, it's still a very good film. I just don't think it's the film. It's just not a film that I, as a Pan-African, that I would say I'll hold up there. But then I don't expect to make a movie. I don't see a movie in Hollywood and think the same. Anyway, what do you think?
No, I mean, to be honest, I haven't thought about it for a while. I think we only thought about it when we were checking the numbers. I think the best description for the film was what you said. It's basically a coming of age tale.
Yeah,
I think it definitely did not follow your superhero tropes as a typical Marvel film will. But I think that in itself is the good and sometimes the bad of it. So I think they did their best. And just to go back on the numbers, I think the 800 is actually a good number. It's actually a very solid number. That is literally two off of a billion, which is given that, as you said, it hasn't got any star, so to speak. It's a very good number. And I think when they actually find a title character for Black Panther, an actual star that will lead it, I think we'll go back to you.
Yeah. I think it'll be
interesting.
Sorry, go on. Finish.
No, I was going to say it'll be interesting what the next situation will be. I think we already touched on this before, whether there'll be a change of guard in terms of the creative people behind it, and whether it'll go more in line with the comic books rather than this sort of social drama. It'll be interesting.
I think they need to be careful though where they go with it, because if they go down the same whole,
I feel like it'll be a bit too much. Like
they got to be very careful, because this film was very un-Black Panther in terms of like, it's on Marvel, in fact. Like, I mean, unless you're making like a Black Widow or something, this was a very feminine-centered film where the villain ended up looking like the toughest guy in the whole thing, or toughest person. Shuri, by the end of it, was a wreck. Her mom is dead. It's like Game of Thrones, like those first few seasons where they just kill all the Starks, and you're just like, what the hell? It's just, you're like, where do you go from here? And then ultimately, like in Game of Thrones, they start pushing the women into powerful positions. But I think with this one, because of the fact that we're dealing with Africa, it just becomes, for me, you got to be very careful, because you might turn off the core audience. Remember I told you about that core audience? You might turn them off if you try and do this again. They have to revert back to some type of reboot or something. And I think Ryan Coogler needs to step away from it, I think.
I think what would be important is, and again, they can keep the underlying theme, obviously, because you can't do Black Panther without the Africanness within it. But
true,
it does feel as if, I get the sense that they will try and make it more in line with the comic book and more actiony and more Marvel friendly than just being a social film, like
because
film about society.
Think about it like this too, right? How often do you see a movie where the villain's backstory and overall story is that much? In a way, it was more. This film was almost like an introduction to Namor. It felt more like a pre because you see, like when Black Panther is introduced in previous films, it's like a small role. And I think Chadwick Boseman was that powerful in them that they were like, oh, we need to explore this more. But Namor is almost like, you are the main reason we're making this film, and we're just adding you on to this storyline so that we can set you up for your own. That's what it felt like.
Do you know what? Maybe it wouldn't surprise me, because even when you look at the press tour for Black Panther, the guy that plays Namor, he is like full front and center as part of the whole thing. Because normally, if you think about how the tour press goes, you'd expect that the heroes would get most of the press time, but with this one, it's almost equal. Hit the hero and the villain, unless the villain is a big name. But this guy was not a big name, because
I think the rest of the cast isn't that big either, in that sense. That like you need to have everybody. Like when they went to Nigeria, they took him, and which is ridiculous. Like you said, it's quite strange for for the villain, you know. But when you actually
Yeah.
see the film, you realize this is as much a film about him as it is about Shuri. But you know,
I think you pop up again in the
I
whole
think he's
Marvel
gonna have
stuff.
his
He
own
has to.
franchise. He's gonna have his
Yeah,
own
that wouldn't
franchise.
surprise me.
You know,
That would be that would be that would be a very smart business move by Marvel if they do that.
yeah.
I think that business would dictate that. But anyway.
Okay. All
So
right.
yeah. So
So
by the way, hold on. So I think it's fair to say. Let me give you your kudos first of all. It's fair to say that you won the bet.
yes, sir.
So my
So Govi will be doing the next
overarching
episode naked. By the way,
I
is it
will not
naked
be
or
doing
topless?
such thing
Okay, we'll figure.
before my wife kills me
We'll
for
deal
short
with
of
it.
the thing.
We'll deal with it offline. We'll come up with a suitable punishment.
All
But don't play with me when it comes to box office.
right.
All right. So
What's
the
up?
reason
All right.
today's episode, as you can see from the thumbnail, is about it is really about hip hop. And let me the influence of hip hop. So let me just go back a little bit to why I wanted us to talk about this. So a few weeks ago, I was in Egypt and I traveled from the length and breadth of Egypt, right? From the far north to the far south. And everywhere I went, you know, because of my appearance and, you know, the way I dress, I guess I get attention. So kids will always come and think I'm a celebrity, take my picture, you know, like 20, 30 kids, sometimes 50 kids. Some pictures I have is like 50 kids. And then I went to this other location.
Oh, I think you're on mute. So.
Sorry. How about now? Can you guys hear me?
Oh, there you are. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Experiencing some technical difficulties, were you?
Sorry about that. Okay, good. Okay, so back to what I was saying. So I traveled from place to place, and I went to this particular location. I was quite remote, and when I got there, the kids were a lot more aggressive. This was more rural, you know, but they were a lot more aggressive. A lot of the kids actually were, you could classify them as, I guess, black too, or mixed or something like that. So it wasn't so much that I just for some reason couldn't speak to them because of the schedule we had, and so all my handlers and everything were like trying to shoo everybody away. My fixers and everything were just trying to shoo everybody away so that we could do what we had to do quickly. And you know, the kids were very, very aggressive, and it was irritating me a little bit, you know, and obviously being a teacher too, like kids talk out of line, you just want to slap them. But as they walked away, as I walked away, I just had some kid in the background say, "Fuck you, bitch," or something like that. Right? And you know, my initial reaction is not important. I don't think we need to bring that up. But the point is that, you know, here's a community where kids do not speak English. By the way, I would say 60% of, if not 70% of Egypt doesn't speak a lick of English. Never mind that they were colonized by the British. They do not speak a lick of English. So these are kids who don't speak English, but obviously soak up hip hop culture and so on. And for some reason, the thing that they associated with me was a terminology or a phrase or collection of words that are, and let's be real, it's not like people don't use these words, but they would have picked this up from popular culture. Fuck you, bitch. This is a small kid, it couldn't be more than 12 or 13.
Oh,
so
really? That young?
Yeah, 12 or 13. So it made me think about our own upbringing. We grew up in Africa, and you know, hip hop was obviously the dominant force that existed. And you see how hip hop, as a dominant force, has gone on to influence the new African wave of music, the Afrobeats, all of that, because the majority of those people grew up with hip hop and are still being influenced by hip hop. And I just really thought to myself, especially after everything that happens with hip hop, you know, I think hip hop as a genre of music has, from what it began as to what it's become, I think has gone, not just gone away, but I think is a bastardization of a culture, of a form of art that started out like other forms of art do, as pure, and now there are things that are so taboo but are so commonplace in hip hop, like the N word, like the word bitch, like the, all I do is win mentality. This things that have taken us far away from any kind of collective understanding of, okay, we're a culture. And you'll hear rappers and musicians who are not black go and use the N word free. Like, you know when I found out Fat Joe was not
What
black,
happened?
and I'm sure he's black somewhere, but he's not black. And DJ Khaled and all these people, and they just use the N word. Obviously, I'm African, but I spent enough time in the Western world to understand how that word is used. But it's just such a quick word for people to use. Nigga, oh nigga, we made it. Like so freely. I was watching a video. Sorry, and I'm gonna land in a second. But I was watching a
Mm.
video the other day on Instagram. My wife was showing me, and kids were in a classroom, and they were all rapping, white kids, black kids, and the black kid said, when it comes to his term, he says, I'm a gay nigga. And I'm just like, I'm just like, since when did this word, which of course we understand the way it was used in hip hop and so on, it has now translated to a point where not just the word, but all the other words that come with it, the motherfucker, the bitch, these things, they are now things that people around the world associate with black culture. And I've said this before also, the fact that the people that get pushed on us as pushed on black people and on the world, that represent black people to the world, are these people. And I know since people might take offense to the fact I say these people, but these people who think that this their expression of freedom is to show the worst in themselves, and at the same time not take any accountability for their culture. And I think for me, it's very important now, especially for children, that going forward, we start to hold not just the rappers accountable, but the people that listen to that type of music accountable. Because ultimately, they don't realize that by listening to this music, it's not only going into your psyche, but you're influencing the next generation. You remember when we were kids, like, and Jay-Z wasn't a billionaire when we were kids. He's a billionaire now. And I would say compared to most others, he's reformed his music. But there are others, the 50 Cents of this world, the God knows who else, so many who, when you look at, they may have changed their overall appearance, but the people that they've influenced in the process, you look at these young rappers today, how many of these rappers are really in jail for real shit? Excuse my French, by the way.
What do you mean real
Compared to
shit?
like those back in the day, rappers would go to jail for like, jaywalking, driving. These guys are going for murder. You have this what's his name?
Young Thug.
Young Thug, is that the one? Young Thug, Gunna, the other boy, the white boy, Tekashi 6ix9ine. You have the other one, Tory Lanez.
Oh yeah.
Shooting another female rapper. I mean, come on, for fun. Then you have all the other ones that have been killed. Like it's almost like on a monthly basis they get killed now. There's the PNB Rock guy. There was, and it's, and I'm not saying that this isn't a societal problem as well, because there's a larger, these things were going on anyway, but it's been elevated to a new level now, and it's gone and influenced people around the world. Now I'm hearing Afrobeat artists when they say, "Yeah, that's my nigga," and I'm just like, that's not part of African culture, But the culture is so influential that it overrides any sense of thinking of what is really you. But at the same time, it puts that as it puts those people or that type of music as the poster child to the culture of being black in the world. And I think it's a problem.
No, I get what you mean. I mean the sad truth, as you said, is pop culture, and who consumes pop culture? The kids. And at their age, you don't have, you won't be able to discern between, you just do what is fun and popular and things like that. Because I mean, we did the same thing when back in our day. Now, granted, it
but
wasn't.
we knew not to. I think it's a deterioration of society. Kofi, we knew better. We
Did
knew
we?
better. No. I mean, no. I'm not talking about being 16 or 17, but we knew the N word is not a word you use. Now, the N word, for example, is popularized. It was cool to be. It's always going to be cool to be a rapper because you're a rock star. Fair enough. And it's again, this is why hip hop is one of those things that you outgrow. It's one of those genres of music you outgrow. You know, like you get to a certain age, and you're not really like. I don't think you listen to as much hip hop as you did 10 years ago. So it's something that you outgrow. But what I'm trying to say is that the children now, hip hop has influenced so much to the point where if you even look at how people speak today, like the term people are using goat in everyday conversation.
Yeah.
When we were younger, bling was brought by Lil Wayne, and then everybody started using it. We're like, oh, that's real appropriation. Now it's like goats, spotting people. It's the terminology has overrun society to the point where even when you listen to what they call pop music, it's hip hop. You remember when Pink came out? Pink came out and she was like, well, oh my god, she's very R&B.
Yeah.
But then like the next album, she went back to whatever it was that she was doing, back to her rock stuff and stuff like that. So there was a clear demarcation as to what Avril Lavigne was doing and what Ja Rule was doing. What J-Lo was doing was kind of like, whereas now it's just this hip hop culture, whether it's R&B or rap, it's all, everything is that kind of music. The dancing, you've got the lip fillers, the everyone's doing ass shots and this, trying so hard to appropriate this culture. And I think it's a problem when you have a problem and you put, Dizzy Rascal to talk about Obama's election, or you put Cardi B to discuss an election. I think these things don't send a positive image. But we've also started doing it in Africa, where we put on, and I won't say any names, but people who really shouldn't be articulating anything because their understanding is so skewed. And it's not their fault. It is to an extent, but the people that are putting them on, what are they trying to get out of it? But carry on.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on a lot of points. I think it's also important to realize that some of these things, it's not a great engineering. Some of these things is just pure commerciality of what is popular. As you said, when we were growing up, rap, hip hop was popular, but it wasn't pop music. Because remember, back in our day, pop music was the dance music and all those things. Exactly. But now, this is literally the height of hip hop, where it is pop culture, from the lingo to literally the body type. Because now every person is trying to get nyash, either by squeezing stuff into their nyash or going to the gym and just exclusively work. So it's
just glutes.
Just glutes. I see that all the time. It's so funny. But again, that is just pop culture. And you're right. The issues you're saying are still valid. But I think it's important to point out that with everything in life, once it hits its peak, everybody will flock to it. There's a reason why it's hit its peak, because it's just gained mass popularity and mass influence. And so when that impacts, and then to your thing about how like certain artists are now being asked questions like political questions, things like that. Again, the intention behind it is not to say that this guy knows what is best. It's purely because the channel or wherever wants the most eyeballs on it, and so they're going to put the popular people on there. Now, is that morally the right thing to do? Of course not. If you actually want to know about, say, the economy, you don't go and ask, let's say, Davido, what is the Nigerian economy about? You go and ask somebody that actually knows, but can that really be can that be stopped though? I mean, it's almost inevitable.
But see, I agree to an extent about that. Yes, they bring the most popular person. Fair enough. But it's funny because you will never see Taylor Swift put in a situation like that, And also, you have to understand the social background, if you will, or the history behind.
Hold on, can I just ask one question? So when you're talking about being put in a situation like that? Do you mean by the black media or the white media?
No, but
I'm assuming you mean the white media.
No. I mean, media is for the most part controlled by white people. I mean,
sorry, you meant media in the West then. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Yeah, we're still talking Western
okay.
media because again, like for me, the major concern is what how hip hop has influenced the world for the worst, for the worst. And it's not just hip hop; it's obviously the people that surround hip hop. But you see, it's if you go through the chronology of hip hop started, and wasn't the MC culture, a little bit of the culture from Jamaica, the breakdancing, all those elements, the five elements of hip hop, the graffiti, all these things. And it started as a pure art form. And as usual, the suburban kids picked it up and said, this is something that we like, and because they were able to jump onto it, record labels were able to jump onto it too and say, okay, we can control this and whatever, we can make some money out of it. Then all of a sudden it goes to a new level. And it takes its first big turn to the millions, to the millionaire level, when hip hop starts to be more ratchet. For lack of a better word, I'm talking about the gangster rap sort of phenomenon, right? And I'm not criticizing them completely for it. The niggas with attitude thing. I'm not necessarily criticizing that too much. Not too much. Of course, like them, like everybody, they were kids. What do kids do? They talk about ignorant stuff and about the stuff that they're experiencing, and they talk about women. Then Diddy comes in, makes it all, whatever, Biggie, that kind of thing. Then we have a new phase that takes it to a get rich or die trying mentality. You understand what I'm saying? Get rich or die trying. Once you start going there, you can see how we quickly get to the all I do is win level. In other words, I'm a winner, you're a loser. This kind of it's completely a complete departure from what the music started at. That's fine, it evolved. But there's no other race that is synonymous with hip-hop music other than black people, even though they're white rappers and so on. But the point I'm making is this is with the history of what black people in the Western world have experienced. You cannot say that this is pure coincidence or it's because it's popular. There's a word nigger. If you look in the 1980s and the 1990s with Chuck D and all these people, they will use words like cracker, gook, Jaime. They would use all sorts of words. Look at Eazy-E and all these people. Like they didn't care what they were saying. They criticized everybody. But every other culture put an end to the negative words. They found a way to block those negative words being used. Now you're on the radio and you hear the word nigger being used in a song because Kanye thought it was necessary to call his song Niggas in Paris. And some people will censor it, some people won't. And then you have kids on there. I had a guy a few years ago, Asian guy, he commented on, he just bought a car or something like a Ferrari or something. And he commented, he's like, yo, nigga, we made it. And I messaged the guy, I was like, excuse me, why would you say that on Facebook? On Facebook, by the way. I was like, why would you say that? And he was like, oh, no, this is said all the time in hip hop music. And I was like, excuse me, they didn't take a plebiscite of all black people and ask every black people, every black person, if they're okay with you saying that word. He was like, yeah, I get it. But you see, so this is essentially pushed as black culture worldwide, by the way. So the minute you're associated as a black person in the Western world, this is your culture. You say words like nigger, you say words like bitch. You understand what I'm saying? And so then it becomes, okay, yeah, it's popular, but who is making the decisions to say that, okay, we're going to let you guys do it, but we're not going to allow anybody to say any of these other words. So now you will see Love and Hip Hop and all the offshoots of Love and Hip Hop. Really, what do you watch Love and Hip Hop for? And by the way, Cardi B, for me, my introduction to Cardi B, I never liked the girl because of the stuff that she would do on Love and Hip Hop. I watched one reunion episode. Don't ask me how I started watching it. That's where she came from. Okay. Yeah. At least when she got into the business, prior to that, I think she was a stripper. But people like that are pushed as our role models. That's what I'm saying. They pushed us out. This is somebody who was known for going on TV and beating people. There's a reunion where this girl was, I think Cardi B was sleeping with her boyfriend, and on the reunion, instead of Cardi B just sit there and be quiet, she just goes and starts beating the girl up. That's how my introduction to Cardi B. And they put these people out there, you know, and they put them as the role models for us to accept. And again, I think we've lost a sense of our dignity as Black people, my brother. I must say.
Hold on. First of all, can I just say that?
No. So just one sec, bro. We've lost the sense of our dignity as Black people, where we'll do anything for $1 without thinking, how is this harmful towards my society? Did you see that video of the girl who did I got murder on my mind or whatever, where she was talking about going to abort her kids? You see that video?
No.
Oh my God, it's one of the worst videos, one of the worst songs. She's going to this Planned Parenthood, which is basically like an abortion clinic. And she was talking about murder on my mind. That was the song she was singing. The hook was like murder on my mind, murder. And nobody like canceled her. So again, what things are being allowed to talk about how you killed 50 guys in the streets and became a millionaire? To talk about how you robbed guys in a strip club and became a millionaire? To talk about how you're overweight and happy to be overweight and go on Instagram Live, take a shit on Instagram Live.
What?
Lizzo, or is it Cardi B? Lizzo and Cardi B have both done it, by the way. Go on Instagram Live, taking a shit. Yeah. Go on YouTube and check it out. You know, to go and do things like this, and they push these people as the role model. So when the world decides, oh, I like that Cardi B song, and then and then you go and Google them and you find out what else they do. These are the things that you see. What's the influence? I do not allow my daughter to listen to this kind of music. I don't allow my sons to listen to this kind of music anyway. But I know I can't fully control them when they get to a certain age. But my God. Kofi, are you hearing what I'm saying when I say that this is what is pushed? It's far more menacing than just, oh, it's innocent music, they're kids. It's far more menacing and sinister, because they're not just saying that you kids can go and be a rapper and be a musician and you can like this music and you go to the concert and everything. They're also saying that this is fine. This person is also somebody that could be a role model for you. I mean, my brother, Beyonce is still Queen Bee, right? And she's able to do her stuff by, you know, even Beyonce, with all due respect, Beyonce wears a swimming costume every time she's going to perform. There's no open the legs up and all that. Now, that's fine. That's a sexy, fine. She's still a married woman. She keeps her stuff to herself. But it's times 10 with this generation. Times 10. Yeah. You know, whatever you criticize Beyonce for back in the day, it's times 10 now.
No, of course. But the thing is, I think even just taking a step back, and I think you most likely agree with this, is the fact that there is the term Black culture, because it's not as if there's just one Black people.
There you go.
It's not as if African Americans are the same as Africans. It's not as if, you know, let's say the Africans in Brazil are not different to the ones in There's not just one Black culture, but unfortunately, in this world that we live in, because of the media,
because of the way media works, that's how it's pushed.
Yeah. And because of how American media particularly is pushed around the world, it becomes inevitable. So putting that to one side, I get your point as to how sinister it can be. Personally, I think we allow them to do that, because again, they can only do what we
100%. Completely agree. Yeah.
So yes, Cardi B has attained a certain level of fame and money. Yeah, and some people want to achieve that, so they want her to be a role model. Fine, but it doesn't mean that she is the standard of role model, because making money alone is not the criteria for being a role model. There are other things, but it's almost inevitable. I mean, I've had this conversation with some of my boys where, like years ago, when like people were being chastised for not using their voice. Say there's a footballer, and some racist shit happens in the UK. Like the footballer's not using their voice, or blah blah blah. It's like, absolutely. First of all, why is it that because this person is doing their job properly,
Yeah.
all of a sudden they're a role model? Do you understand what that term role model means? Do you
Yeah.
understand what comes with it, the responsibility? Not everybody wants that because they appreciate the importance of it. Some people will take it and exploit it.
But Kofi, there's an extent. There's a certain argument where you would say, but to an extent, people who are put in front of cameras, put ahead of people, have to accept that they are role models. I, by the way, have no respect for any famous person who says, I don't want to be a role model. You've got no choice. You have products you sell, you have music you sell. People are going to be influenced by that music and those products. So it's disingenuous. And I find people like that the worst kind. I don't want to be a role model. You have no choice. And this is a byproduct of poor education by their parents too.
But hold on. But again, I think it's important to understand a few things. So you're right. If they're out there selling a product, because the problem is this in this Western world that we live in, or this media world that we live in. If I am selling you a product, or if I'm behaving in a certain way, because the term role model encompasses everything, right? Now, say I'm a footballer, and I'm a very good footballer, and maybe I sell shaving sticks, right? Fair enough, you can call me a role model, but I am not a role model for every aspect of life. That is not what I signed up for. If you want a role model because it's important. If you want a role model in terms of how do I, as a young player, a young football fan wants to make a professional, how do I? Because if you want that role model, I can be that. But I can't be a role model for every aspect of life. Okay. I'll give you an example. So in the corporate world, like we all have ambitions of making it to the highest level, right? So I have certain people that I've worked with that are, above me that I will go and ask, will you be my role model? Right?
Like a mentor.
Yeah, that kind of thing. It's a mentor, sorry, not role model, but a mentor.
And that's please don't ask somebody if they can be a role model. Can you please be my role model? Please don't do that. Please stop that, please.
But the thing is, that is obviously that person's not famous and everything. I think it's a mistake to a certain extent to expect that because somebody has achieved a certain level of fame, because they're in front of a camera, I'm not saying they shouldn't have any responsibility, but to expect them to be a role model in all aspects of life, that is only setting them up to fail. And I don't blame anybody in that position that doesn't want to do that. If in my particular field, you want me to be a role model in my particular field, no problem. Yeah. And I'm not saying that I won't behave well in other aspects of life, but don't. So, for example, the thing you mentioned about politics, like the artists that are being questioned about politics. This person is not a role model to comment on politics. Yes, they have influence, but not a role model in that sphere of life. If they want to be a role model in terms of how do I turn my creativity into something that I can pass on to my listeners that they will engage, blah, 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 go nuts. But you can't expect them to just be a role model. That is it, unless you define it. But nobody has the time to do that.
But you see, I think you see, this is where I think the world has gone crazy. Thank you, Victoria, for the super chat, by the way. I think the world has gone crazy because I think the world has lost a sense of accountability and responsibility. Kofi, if you go back to the 1950s, 1960s, and you saw what celebrity was, there were some that you would say they had a negligible attitude towards life. The rock stars, there were a couple, but for the most part, people felt the need to articulate themselves a certain way and show certain things and not show other things. Right? I think that's fair to say. Yeah. We've reached a point now where people say anything, do anything, don't go back on their word often. Now, those are character traits which, full stop, as a child, are not good. So I'm not even saying that, you have to be a role model so that every action you show is going to be the perfect action. You don't have to talk about everything.
Agreed.
We're far too honest about my truth. I'm just trying to show me. I'm just trying to be me. I'm expressing myself. The world is not built for individuals to express themselves. The world is built for people to come in and somehow impact the world around them or the society around them and move forward to the next generation. Again, I mean, and it goes back to even when you talk about relationships and marriage and how Marriage rates have gone down. Birth rates have gone down. Anything that is called traditional is being lambasted and criticized because people say, "Oh, it's wrong." We're all now trying to express ourselves, and if a celebrity or somebody who is paid millions to do something, whether it's on a football field, basketball court, or on a film, or on wax in music, there is a certain amount of responsibility I expect them to have.
Okay.
And I'm not saying this generation is the first to do it. It's, again, you go back 30 years in hip hop, people were doing this. But it's so ironic also, right? Because, you know, you look at the world we're in now, right? Everyone's got tattoos on their faces. The whole arm. Kofi, by the way, do you have tattoos? I don't remember. No, you don't. I am now, by the way, there was a time I wanted to have tattoos, but I now am like somebody who had tattoos 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Because I am the oasis in the desert. I don't have any tattoos whatsoever. Yeah. Now people are tattooed all over, arms, everything, every single sports star. Now, fine, you want to express yourself. But you see, we are getting to a point now where we don't even, there's no discretion. Nothing is kept to the person. We must talk about everything. Somebody gets divorced, they have to talk about everything they did. Keep your mouth shut. Respect who you are and respect the children that might be born or even the people that might be watching you because they want to, they need to see the better side of you when you talk too much about everything that you do. And this is why these rappers now, like, you know, and we probably shouldn't talk about the Smith family because I think two people have talked about them too much. But Will Smith and his family, I remember seeing them on Oprah about 10 or 15 years ago, and they look like a model family. We'd heard all the rumors about what they used to do and everything, but nobody cared because no one talked about it. All of a sudden, we got to an age of red tables where now let's talk about everything. And you could see how this family, which for a good 15 years, don't forget how long Will and Jada have been together, a good 15 years were the model of a modern hip-hop family, if you will, Hollywood family, have disintegrated because they talk too much, because they're all expressing their truth, trying to show that this one is this one and this one is this one. What's the boy's name again? The Karate Kid. What's his name? Jaden.
Jaden, yeah.
Jaden was Jaden the dresses, and he's like, Tyler the Creator's my fucking boyfriend. You know, look, why do we need to know? Even the whole, you know, it goes back to a lot of these conversations about, you know, LGBTQ issues and so on. Whatever you do is your business. But we now are at a place where everything we have to talk about it. Everything we have to talk about. Now you can criticize me for saying something because you're offended by what I say rather than saying that's his opinion. You understand what I'm saying? And again, we go back to the original topic which we're talking about, which is hip hop. Hello? Not sure if...
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know if it's you that went out or me that went out. But
no, it was me. It was me. I think I saw my thing go black.
But we go back to what we were talking about, which is hip hop. Hip hop music is an art form. Fair enough, it's a very specific art form. But because of the socio-political, but also the historical things that have happened to the Black people who are essentially the pioneers of this music, you cannot divorce yourself from the place that we're in now. You can't divorce where we're in with the situation that we find ourselves in today from the people that have put us in this place in the first place. But we have to take some responsibility too, because we're still allowing them to do it and allowing them to do it to us on a macro level. It was a micro level with Diddy. But now you look at how many of these hip hop rappers and musicians have become billionaires in the last decade. You understand what I'm saying? So it's now going to a new level. It's now something to be aspirational. You aspire to not being in a marital home. You aspire to not having any filter when you speak. You aspire to also just being taken by what everybody else is doing and just jumping on the bandwagon to every new trend. And for
But
me, that
you know the
is a
irony of
major
all of
problem.
that? The
Yeah.
the billionaires actually in hip hop, maybe outside of Diddy. Well, I guess
And
it's not that
Dre.
many. Well, Dre, Jay-Z, and or let's say the OGs.
Kanye, there are quite a few of them. Jay-Z,
Kanye
Kanye.
is no longer a billionaire, man. The guy
But
fucked up.
he's but
But
what I
yeah,
mean is he's reached the level. I think Nas is about to be there. You
yeah.
know,
So if you look at it's safe to say that at least half of them almost practice what you're doing. So look at how Jay-Z has evolved.
have reformed themselves to practice?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. In the sense that they keep their shit to themselves, and then when they
But yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
And I agree with you. I agree with you.
yeah.
But I'm not. You see, this isn't an attack on an individual. I'm
Oh
not
no, no, I
focusing on
get
an
what you mean. I was just
individual.
making a distinction.
Yeah.
But
But because again, yeah, like they've matured. You know,
yeah,
they've
and this
matured.
is the thing. T, and
Yeah.
this is the thing. Sorry to cut you off, but this is the thing because you made a very good point earlier about how in this society that we live in, anything that is deemed to be traditional is almost completely written off and ignored. Almost as if that so-called tradition is not what has, developed society
Maintained
for
us
all this while.
since the birth of humans. Yeah.
Yeah. And the irony is, and the thing that I've come to realize, don't forget, we are also men of a certain age. And again, when there was a saying that I heard in a podcast the other day, I'm going to Google and try and tell you later on. But essentially, the idea around it is you will always find a young liberal because they have hearts. Like young people have hearts. They haven't yet experienced the world, so they are open to everything, and so they're liberal at heart. But you always find an old conservative because they have experienced the world. They understand the true meaning of what life is about. They have things to protect, they're responsible for, and therefore they will be more conservative. But I tell you, the quote was said in such a beautiful way, and it made so much sense. And the point I'm trying to make is,
as people grow older, they become more conservative
naturally, and that's because we just simply get wiser. In order, sorry,
I think that was true. I think people get more conservative, but okay. Sorry, finish your point. Point, and I'll say what I'm saying.
So I think what is happening is, because again, I was the type that, in hindsight, like my mom said a lot of things that when I look back now, they are 100% correct. In terms of life, in terms of how you view things, in terms of like how I'll do certain things. Like say, because I've been living here for a long time, so I don't go home I go home every once in a while. Yeah. I haven't spent that much time with her continuously. So just little things like, because I'm on holiday, I'll go home and have a lie-in. But she'll wake up and be like, you should be up doing this, blah, blah, blah.
You should be up doing something,
and relax. It's my holiday, yeah. But, her point was this. Basically, your habits is what creates, who you are. And I think for the most part, as younger people, we always push back against the tradition. And the thing is, I think that's inevitable. I think tradition itself needs to evolve to a certain extent. But what I'm starting to realize is, because I think there's this big disconnect between, let's say, our generation, not disconnect, but big difference between our generation and, say, your kids' generation, right? Or the generation just before them, where they fully embrace this, as you say, my truth, my individualism, all of those things. And is sort of narrowed their view on life because all they can think about is them. Whatever they feel is the right thing. Whatever thought that pops into their head is the right thing. You cannot say anything against any thought they have. And it's like, what are you talking about? This is not how the world works. Unfortunately, when you get into the world, you realize it. Because right now you can say this bullshit because you are staying at home and getting fed and everything. When you have to enter the world, you realize that shit is actually tough. It's not just your view or your thought that prevails.
Yeah. I would actually agree with you. I'd actually agree with you. Sorry. Okay, finish. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think so. The point I was trying to make is essentially this. I think, and again, whenever I see these problems, I always think, okay, how can we solve this? Because each generation will have a bit of a grind against each other. But I think in a way, it's up to us, the older generation, to find a way to almost communicate or get the younger generation to hear us. Because imagine best case scenario, yeah. Imagine if the younger generation understood what we had gone through. So rather than going to make the same mistakes or spending the time to go and make the same mistakes, they understand the mistake, and so they take it the next step up in the best possible way. Imagine how great life would be. Yeah. And I think it's our responsibility to somehow communicate that to them. Now, we can do that at an individual level, but as you said, at a macro level, it's almost inevitable that it's almost impossible because of how media and everything as well. Because again, media is just all about commercialization of things. So they just put out the bad shit rather than trying to be responsible and, bring up society in the best possible way.
Well, let me put it to you like this, because I think, and I have to go back to history, unfortunately. You see, every time Westerners have had the dominance in society, when you go back to old Greece or Rome, when Rome was the cradle of civilization, when you go to even Britain, they've always destroyed it from within because of like a complete erosion of their culture, of the traditional culture that they had that got them to where they were in the first place. You go back to old Greece, they eventually went to a level where they were doing things that were so obscene, and the people tore away from it. And from Greece, they went what would be called south or east. Culture went east. When the Romans were defeated, the culture went east to Persia, right? When they lost when Rome as a culture stopped being what it was, they were doing things that they were not supposed to be doing. There was corruption. There was all sorts of stuff. What we're witnessing, I think, and I've been talking about this a lot lately, and I really, really see it. You're starting to see power shift east again into places like the Middle East, Dubai, Qatar, China, right? Power is shifting east once again. Because like all other Western cultures and traditions, this one is beginning to get to a place where it's going so far that people's human nature is saying, this is a bit too crazy for me. Keep in mind, like a year ago, 2 years ago, LGBTQ was like, you have to accept it. Fine. A year later, it's now, I identify as a woman, and it doesn't matter because I identify as a woman, that's all that matters. And so therefore, when I go and compete in a sport, even though I'm 6 feet and I weigh, how much do I weigh? 200 and something pounds, I can compete as a woman. Then women start pushing back and saying, okay, yeah, I was cool with the LGBTQ stuff. I was even cool with you identifying as a woman. Now you're saying you're taking food out of my mouth. You see the guy that won the swimming thing by identifying as a woman in America, like a college swimming thing. And then fast forward to now where you can't even identify what a woman is.
Yeah. Have you seen that documentary, by the way?
I saw the clips that mattered. You can't even identify what a woman is. So the
Supreme Court judge could not even define what a woman was.
Even the most liberal of people are like, hold on, it's a bit too crazy for me. It's a bit too crazy. So what we're witnessing actually is the destruction of Western civilization. It's dying. They've had it for a while. It's dying. And I think ultimately when we start to see things, it's like how biblical people will say, not biblical people, but religious people will say, oh, we're seeing the final days. It's not the final days of the world, but final days of this society. When you start to see this, and it's sad because as Black people who have probably in this last 300 or 400 years, half century, or even not half century, half millennium, have probably seen the worst of everything. We are the ones that are taking the worst of this and putting it to a whole new level. We are holding hands with the same oppressors and allowing them to take us to a whole new level to destroy not only their society, but our own too. And I thank God for, it might sound crazy, but places like the Middle East, which still maintain certain traditions. I thank God for places in Africa, which still maintain certain traditions, regardless. I thank God. Because if Western culture, and in particular hip hop, had done the job that they really wanted, and I'm not going to say that it's not worked, but if they had done the job they really wanted, we would be finding ourselves, our heads of states in Africa, subscribing to some of these bullshit, excuse my French, by the way, subscribing to these bullshit policies and trends. When Obama goes to Africa, and first of all, he dusts his shoulders off before when he gets elected, but then he goes to Africa and he tells everybody, you have to accept this, you have to accept that. And they're like, no, you keep your culture to yourself. That's not what we do here. So it's sad because Europeans are essentially using African artists, hip hop artists, to promote this message. And we as a culture are not getting any better. I'm talking specifically about Black people in the Western world. We are not getting any better. Anyway. Guys, thanks for the comments. Keep them coming. All right. So I posted a few of them up. Guys, let's get a few more comments. Thank you all for coming in. So Mr. C, I'd say the changes are happening too fast, aka in the same generation. That's a very good point, Kate. Because you know, in you know, we're in our late 30s now, right? Mid to late 30s. Yeah. How old are you? I forgot. Yeah, late 30s. Sorry, late 30s. I forgot. You know the year. Every year you forget how old you are. Late 30s. So pushing 40. So let's just say 40. Let's just say people who are 40 and below. No, I mean it's nearby. 40 and below. Don't say your age. It's okay. Just respect yourself. 40 and below. So 40. You're closer to 40 than 30. So it's not the point. So 40 and below, that age range, we've seen in the latter half of, or even really in the last 10 years, gay marriage be accepted. But growing up, it's not as if we didn't know gay people were there and LGBT was there. We even knew about transvestites. We used to use transsexual. We knew about all these things, but they weren't like pushed on us. We just said, you know what? People can do whatever the hell they want to do. That's their business. But in the last decade, not only have they said, you will not only accept that there's this stuff, but we're going to force you to accept that marriage has no identity. In terms of it could be between a man and a man, and woman and woman, woman and man. There's no difference. But not only that, we're going to say that whoever thinks they're a woman or whoever thinks they're a man, even if they were not born that way, we will allow them to be. We will treat them and we will help them. And so even to the point where if they want to go to a toilet, public toilet, they can go to whichever one they want. If they want surgery, if they're 5 years old and they say to themselves that I need therapy and medication so I can become more of a woman or more of a man, we will give it to them. And to the point where in this same time frame, they've also said that I am not going to accept your definition of a woman. The definition that people have been using, they say human existence goes back 200,000 years. Modern Homo sapiens sapiens were about 200,000 years. That the definition that's been used for 200,000 years to describe a woman is now obsolete. These changes, as Mr. Siad is saying, are happening too fast. They're speeding them up. And the faster they happen, the quicker it will be for this culture to completely be destroyed. Anyway, you were going to say something.
Yeah, you know the scary thing about the whole gender thing? Because it's the fact that, because again, you can't really like get it past an adult as easily as you can kids. And the real concern is how they're trying to, I guess, teach kids these kind of things. And obviously this is predominantly in America. I don't know how prevalent it is in Europe. I mean, it's definitely not the case in Africa, but it's interesting how they're keen to get it introduced to kids at a very young age. We're talking like 3rd grade level. And it's like, why are you so keen to do that? Why? You can, as you said, if you want to.
For the same reason you would put Cardi B as a role model. Bro, for the same reason.
It's
erosion.
Right, there's a very good podcast you should listen to. It's a Joe Rogan podcast with what's his name? Matthew Walsh, the guy that did What is a Woman? It's very interesting. It's almost like 3 hours. I was listening to it the other, actually, when we were driving to our families. But yeah, it's riveting, man. You should listen to it.
So Victoria says toilets should be off limits. There should be a toilet, men and women only, and only one one for unisex. Okay, now that's fine if this is the part where we start to play God and it goes horribly wrong. Remember that Dave Chappelle skit when keeping it real goes wrong? Do you remember Dave Chappelle skit when keeping it real goes wrong from Chappelle Show? Anyway, we start to play God and it will always go wrong. There are two sexes that any human being can be, any human animal can be given at birth. To deny that is a denial of biology, denial of science, denial of whatever, right? It's a pure denial. Even to say that there's somehow a third option, a man-made option or woman-made option, is going back to the fact that to the point I made where we have started to divorce ourselves from the greater good. What good is it to have a third toilet? What sex is that?
I think when she says unisex, that's for both, not a third.
But I mean, if that's what she meant, then my bad. But from what I understand by what she's saying there should be a men's toilet and women's toilet only, and one for unisex. Okay, if that's what you're saying, absolutely, I agree. If you're both happy going to the same toilet, fine. Or if not, we'll do two separate ones. That's absolutely how it should be.
Yeah.
But we you see, we cannot even have these conversations.
That is the key thing.
It's so crazy.
That is the key.
It's so crazy. Thank you, Victoria. My bad. I misunderstood what you meant.
That is the key thing that you just said, is the fact that in this day and age, you cannot have that conversation. And again, the documentary that Thingy did is such a clear evidence of that. This guy went to a college to speak to professors of gender studies and just asked them the question. And they were all sort of looking all scared. He went to a senator. Before he even got to the question, the senator was like, no, we have to end this now.
Yeah.
Like the Supreme Court, the black Supreme Court lady that was elected to, black lady that was elected to the Supreme Court, she was asked about it. She was asked what was a woman, and she chose not to answer. What does that tell you? You can't even, first of all, you can have, like you said, you can't even have an opinion that it opposes this message.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame that in this day and age, people cannot, listen, in our day, even in school, we used to do debates, debate clubs.
Yeah.
Where, they'll put you, even if you don't believe in it, they'll put you on one side, they put you on the other side, and you just debate it. The idea of it is that you can have two differing views, completely opposite views, but there's just common decency to just sit down, talk to each other. Maybe during the process you learn something, maybe not, but you could have bloody discourse.
Yeah.
But now that is not accepted.
Yeah.
That is a scary thing.
But you see, this is what I think. I don't know. Look, my father was born 1935 in Africa in a village. Like his life, when I compare it to my own, it's just not worth. Like there's no comparison, right? All the when say they walk miles, and my father never put that as a badge of honor. He never told me about it. It's my mom that used to tell me these stories, right? Never. He was all about, we have to work hard, take care of your family, and move on. And when you get to the certain age, you die and you move on. We've gone to a place now where there's so much available for us to talk about. My mental health. I have never seen such a weak society in my life that they talk about mental health like this. Mental health?
No, hold on.
No. Let me because you see, there are people who have real issues. But simply because I say I have my mental health, I'm worried about my mental health. It's a buzzword that says that just because you have a mental health issue, you can't get over it on your own without doing something about it. It's almost like saying people that lived in a society, people that lived in the Industrial Revolution, people that lived during apartheid, people that lived during the slave trade, whatever. If your mental health is bad, what was theirs? But they found a way to keep going and breeding you. If my father, who is almost 90 years of age, if I have mental issues, what did he have? But I never heard it from his mouth. He never used it as a badge of honor. I'd like to think he raised a pretty good son. Or 11, 12 children, 12 sons, actually. How many sons? Anyway, quite a few kids. I'd like to think he raised quite a few different children, a few good children. Him and my mother, of course, not just him. But the point I'm making is he did it in spite of whatever mental health. But now,
of course.
Oh my God, I smoked weed. I was having mental health issues. And everybody, but you see, what I was getting at is it's all part of the same issue. This weakening of the human mind by feeding them garbage, BS that doesn't allow them to take any self-accountability. That's my overall problem. No self-accountability. So back to the original point where we talked about the rappers, don't want to be a role model. You have to be. You have to be. And that's the problem with this society versus the societies that existed before. I am a role model. I have no choice. Once I put myself on Front Street, I have no choice. I have no choice.
I caveat some of them, and I think I already mentioned in terms of the role model thing. But to your point about the mental health thing, I think looking at it holistically, I get your point. I think the way I see it is, and this is particularly for men, I think there's been an effort to get men to be more expressive. I know this thing makes you roll your eyes. Wait. Let me finish. Let me learn. And again, it's not to say that the aim of it, at least for that aspect of it and the way I view it, I think you're absolutely right in that people exploit mental health to avoid self-accountability. 100%. Yeah. Not all people, some people, arguably majority.
Yeah? That's it.
But I think fundamentally, again, this is not the issue of, it's not the fault of mental health discussion, but rather the fault of how perhaps it's being broadcasted or being directed at people. I think fundamentally the whole thing about mental health is just to get people to understand that, the shit that we do, it does impact us in ways that we cannot imagine. And sometimes simple things as talking to, listen, this is why I've had you as a friend for how many years? For over 20 years. No matter the bullshit I'm going through, I can call you and say some shit to you.
And vice versa. But exactly. None of us goes and holds that as what I mean is you didn't take time off work to go through your mental issues. You talk to someone. That's what you do.
This is the
That's
thing.
the village concept.
Hold on. And I don't oppose any of that. Sorry. I don't oppose any of that. But again, this at least is a step in the right direction for those people that need it. Because I think
it's a step in the wrong direction.
Maybe we are built slightly different. Because again, I wasn't, just imagine this, yeah. We had the benefit of having our fathers as role models. Our fathers that literally came from villages, as you well pointed out, to make it in society, where they're able to then send us to, international schools and all those things. That's a trajectory we have seen. And that instills us with a certain level of confidence that cannot be, undervalued, right? Now, imagine somebody that, as you said, as you said on this show, how the Western society is crumbling. So imagine somebody that's born and bred in this thing, where they don't have those things that those anchors that they can use, right? And the whole discussion about mental, I get that is over. What's the word? When something is over,
overplayed.
Not overplayed. It's like an overcorrection, perhaps.
Oh, right.
But
okay.
I get how, at least it's a start. Hopefully it corrects itself, but it's a start to allow certain people to release themselves of that anguish. I'm not saying they shouldn't take self-accountability. Ideally, they do that. They take that self-accountability. And those two things is what will propel you forward. But to just claim you have mental health issues. And the thing is, listen, I know people from work or people that I've worked with that have milked that so much. Like literally taking time off of work consistently for any obstacle they encounter in life, mental health issues, they get to sign off, they're off work. And the rest of us are having to pick up the slack. I say we don't have to deal with anything at all. But so I get your point. But I
But
think
but but
I
but,
think
but you see, I even think that the so-called people in this society that, and again, look, like I said, there are some people that have real things they're dealing with, but you deal with it and you move on. You see, I'm not. It's not even about the policy around mental health. I'm talking about the overall society and how we misunderstand important cues in our life, and instead of taking accountability, we move it on to something else. We have a low marriage rate and a low birth rate. So the things which traditionally would take people's mind off their own reflection, their own crap, traditionally, they walk away. People walk away from saying, "Oh no, I don't need. My marriage is terrible. Oh, it's affecting my mental health, so I'm gonna divorce. Oh no. I want to be selfish. I'm gonna have a child without having a husband or having a wife. All the things which affect your mental health in the first place. That's one thing. But at the same time, at what point do you start to say that, okay, the issues I have are to do with the fact that I'm not taking any accountability for the things that I've done, but also I'm not trying to fix them. I'm further deflecting. These people that live in this society, with all due respect, your lives are not that hard. I've lived in this country for 20 years, nearly. It's not that hard to live here. I'm sorry. As a single parent, it's always hard everywhere, but it's not as hard as it is in Africa. And we know single parent friends that grew up in Africa. One of them is a mutual friend of ours. We know single parent, but somehow, with worse circumstances, able to get through it. But somehow this society, which prides on itself on being able to go and dictate to the world how everybody else should be, by the way, cannot even get its people to knuckle up and get to work, get things done. So again, it all comes down to the fact that I think also there's a larger play at hand, which is trying to destabilize societies, destabilize homes, destabilize cultures, and move people away from what is intended for them to have for the sake of maybe monetary gain, but ultimately it is to the detriment of this society. And it's so ironic because everyone is running away now to the societies which 50 years ago were seen as underclass, but have such traditional values. You look at the mass migrations that are happening to the Middle East for European people, but then look at the mass migrations that are happening, maybe not in numbers that we want, but to Africa. The West is getting empty. Take away the pound. There's nothing keeping you in England, really. And really, the pound is neck and neck with the euro almost. Another 5 years, you'll be asking yourself, what am I doing here? Because societally, there's nothing that you need. It's not beneficial to you, Kofi, as a Ghanaian, with a Ghanaian wife, grew up in Ghana, born in Ghana. There's nothing here that's really beneficial to you. Once you trust me, I have children in school, and I teach in secondary schools. Once you go in there and you see what is happening, you're saying, the school that we went to with a chalkboard is better than this. With 50 kids in a class and one school teacher. What I get out of it is far better. So what I'm saying is, on a societal level, this society is declining. And I just don't want to see Black people being put at the forefront of it to further erode a society that is. And I think maybe this is the bigger message. Sorry, I know I'm waffling. We'll round up. I'll take your last point and we'll round up. I think the message I would give to Black people that live in the West is hip hop is a musical phenomenon. It's not a culture. It is not a culture. What is a culture is African culture. The culture that you were ripped away from, which you still had to an extent 50 or 100 years ago, even though you didn't know it was African culture, the things that you did naturally that were very African, that is your culture. Hip hop is not a culture. So stop subscribing to this hip hop culture. Hip hop, it is not a culture. And I think the minute you go back to what is truly a culture, something that stood the test of hundreds and thousands of years. That is when you will find who you are. Anyway, so take your last point, Kofi, and then we'll round up.
No. I think I don't want to mess up that one. I think that was a good way to end it.
Okay.
That was a good point. A very good point.
Okay. I didn't get to read them out, but I put the messages out.
Actually, let's maybe we should read a few comments out and answer them, because I think some questions.
I mean, I put them on the thing, but we can go from the beginning. Okay, so Menipta Hekitef, are you Ethiopian? I'm not sure. Stolen Africans around the world are a wild card, so they always have to market their politics towards stolen Africans. I think he means African Americans, Africans in the West around the world are the wild card. Yeah, exactly. Good. So they're the ones that end up being used because they're kind of caught in between two societies. Somebody said, I had no idea Cardi B and Lizzo took dumps on IG. Embarrassing, by the way. Embarrassing. I couldn't believe it. Okay. Galactic Soul, it's the same issue with Jamaican dancehall. The older artists are asking the younger artists to tone down the violence and gunshot culture in the music. It's a cancer. It's happening everywhere in every genre of music. It's happening. Let's see. The changes are happening too fast, aka in the same generation. And then we did Victoria's comments about the toilets. So she said also, there is something needed in schools so everyone can feel safe. Yeah, I think that was also about oh yes, we're all being depressed and gotten over it. Yeah, we've all been depressed and we all go over it. That's the truth. Like Kofi, in this week, have you not been depressed once at least? Your mental health get affected. You found a way to get on with it. And then Mr. Siad, exactly, they don't even try, so they never build the skills, and one pebble flips over their apple carts. Absolutely. So I think everybody that's on this live agrees with what we're saying. But I think it's so important to have these conversations, because sometimes you get caught up in this BS and you start believing it. You're like, oh, you start using it as a crutch too. I was saying something to my wife the other day. I was like, because you know how this might be a woman thing, actually. It might be actually a people thing, but I notice it a lot more with women. It's like women don't want to criticize other women when they're doing wrong. And I said, if they're your friend, you have to. You have to. Otherwise, no, it's true. Kofi, how many times over the years, something I'm doing?
Too many.
You're like,
too many, my friend.
My brother, why are you doing this? Stop it.
It goes both ways.
But because that's what we're supposed to do. But somehow we've gone to a place now where we're so afraid to talk about other people because everybody has this, my truth. The amount of women that have unfollowed on social media because of it's all about them. Every picture is about them. They'll show their ass and then they'll put, oh, God doesn't judge me, so you shouldn't. All these stupid things. Anyway, what were you going to say? Sorry.
The other thing I've also noticed is how now when you are, as you said, friends should be able to be open with each other and tell each other, like, you need people to literally hold you accountable. There's self-accountability. You also need your close circle to hold you accountable. Now, the thing I've discovered is even when somebody's given advice, now advice is advice. It doesn't mean you have to do it.
Yeah.
You can take the advice, you can take 10%, you can take 20%. Yeah. But now the person that's receiving the advice is now trying to dictate how you should give the advice to them. I'm like,
yeah.
You have given me these facts. You told me 2 + 2. I have added them up and I've told you 2 + 2 is equals to 4. But because I'm not speaking like 2 + 2 is equals to 4 and you haven't done anything wrong, and really it's because it's 2 + 2 is equals to 4. You can't see it. Why are we going back and forth about this?
Well, you're not alone in that one. Go on.
Sorry, the weirdest thing was that this happened with people that are our age as well. So when you made the point about how when you're in this mindset for so long, you also pick up the crutch and start using it. And I'm like, dude, you're not a millennial, though. You can't be acting like this. You can't be acting like this.
No. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I guess, guys, thank you for tuning in. Those who did tune in, those who watch this later, we're gonna try and get these podcasts on Spotify as well and all the other podcast places, so you'll be able to listen to them. Please share these guys. We need you. There's some hardcores, that keep coming in week after week. We appreciate you. Probably gonna Kofi, are we gonna do this more regularly?
Oh yeah, now that you're back, we'll do it. We only took a break for Onuora to finish the
For a
filming
month.
for Christmas.
For a
Yeah, but
month.
no, we're back now. We're back on our grind.
Yeah. And on this channel too, I'm posting a lot more stuff. I'm gonna try and post it could be a documentary every month next year. It's gonna be hard,
Yes,
but
sir.
I'm gonna try and get it done. And so please stay tuned. We'll try and grow this channel, try and grow this podcast. I enjoyed it, Kofi. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, my brother.
No problem, man. Anytime. And to the next one.
Yes, sir. Everybody have a great afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Peace.